Saturday, May 2nd, Showdown for the WBO Cruiserweight title is an intriguing match between titleist Zurdo Ramirez and challenger David Benavidez. These two men have a history of having worked with one another in the gym going back a very long time, but they have similar circumstances regarding their movement through the sport of boxing as far as competing, how they've carried the weight divisions where they've competed, and the possibility that they were always in the vicinity of one another, and now it's going to take place. The two are going to face each other. We're going to talk about what can transpire in this fight, which I consider to be truly a Mexican showdown 50-50. And that's something that's not rare, but it's an oddity because there's so much similar between the two. Let's talk about what can take place when these two face one another. What I like about the matchup that's coming up between Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez and David Benavidez is this is the type of fight where two men who bring contrasting styles to the ring, but they bring a lot of similar aspects. Their dimensions physically, the way that they have grown in the sport. There is a bit of separation when you talk about the ages of the two men, because it happens to be that Zurdo is now 34 and David is 29. An advantage that David has had is working throughout the sport where he's had an opportunity to train, spar, and gain experience from world-class former champions, and it has brought him to a degree where he has the confidence to know that he can compete on that level, including Zurdo, whom he worked with and sparred numerous rounds. But there should always be something within the guy who has the class that the younger sparring partner, and I don't refer to David being a sparring partner, but when he was giving the likes of Ramirez work, when Ramirez was preparing for world-class title opportunities, he should have always kept something in reserve for the young upstart, because in the event that things turn, you may have to teach him a new lesson when you face. I'm willing to believe that Zurdo has done that to a small degree, but he's also no longer the fighter that Benavidez was sparring, because he's made some changes to his own fighting style. And that may be what separates the two. When we consider David Benavidez, the Mexican monster, as he has been known to be named, he has basically a one-dimension style. And he has enjoyed the luxury of and benefit of imposing that style on most of his subjects that he's fought, because those dimensions are quite mighty. He himself has mentioned that he does walk around over 200 pounds. Now understand, he was competing at super middleweight. That's a heck of a lot of weight to drop to compete at that weight class. So you know that when he would rehydrate, his opponents were facing someone who was pretty much borderline cruiserweight, which is one of the reasons that he had given such physically dominating performances. For a man of his size, his hand speed is very good. However, the punching power doesn't equate, and he overwhelms most with volume, physical presence, and pressure. Something that he won't have advantages with Zurdo. And so when you think about the past opponents that Benavidez has beat, you think about the guys like Anthony Yarde, David Morrell, Alexander Gavaskic, Demetrius Andrade, and Caleb Plant. They were all subjected to one aspect of his physicality or another. It was either his hand speed against the likes of Gavaskic, and it was his physical presence with guys like Anthony Yarde and Demetrius Andrade. David Morrell, it turned out that though Morrell was on par with him with the physicality and everything, the lack of experience is where Morrell fell into a trap that he could not climb out of. And so the likes of Benavidez has enjoyed advantages in that regard. So when we talk about Zurdo, those advantages are not necessarily going to be that can help him prevail. Zurdo is every bit as big and has come down from higher weights to compete at those lower weight classes. If I'm not mistaken, Zurdo was one time at, what was he at, junior middleweight? Something like that. I have to go back and look at his career. But Zurdo was always a big guy. Always. And it's interesting because as he was down there at those weight classes, he was able to be a dominant guy. Real physicality. And it just makes you wonder, like, my goodness, he had mastered dropping that weight. No, he was a super middleweight. Junior middleweight was not where he was. I'm thinking of Jesus Ramos. Forgive me for that mistake. But Zurdo exhibited the same type of physicality and presence. He would wear opponents down with pressure and strength, punching to the body, and giving them no space, always crowding, always lurking. And he was able to do that until he moved up to light heavyweight and took on the likes of Dmitry Bivol. Back in November of 2022, he lost a unanimous decision to Bivol, and that was the fight where he seemingly decided to make some changes. Going in against the likes of Joe Smith Jr. is when he began to turn things around for himself. What Zurdo was able to do is become more of a boxer puncher, giving lateral movement not just languishing on the inside, but starting to use the advantages that he has, the hand speed, the strength, but not just to overwhelm guys, but to learn to how to outthink them and outfight them with tactic, strategy, overall game plan. And now being 34 years of age, you understand that he's coming out of a prime, but a fighter like Benavidez, who's entering a prime, has to be shown in a way where it is tactical and strategical that he can best him. Will he do these things is very interesting to find out. I believe he's more than capable, but Benavidez, having been in there with him, is going to find certain aspects of their fight familiar. And he may have an advantage there. But Zurdo, who, like I said, for like 5 fights now, has made some changes to how he approaches a boxing match. When he defeated Chris Billum Smith in November of 2024, he outboxed Billum Smith and made him look very pedestrian, as if that former titleist didn't belong in the ring with him. And see, that is growth. When you begin to show versatility, that you can win a fight more than one simple way. And so therein lies an advantage that he can enjoy by being a bit more versatile than David. Now, like I said, David, as he has mentioned going into this fight, is going to be looking for a knockout. And he can get a knockout, especially if Zurdo cooperates. But something tells me that Zurdo is a little bit more an intelligent fighter than people are giving him credit for. And David could be someone who's overlooking the scenario of the experiences that Zurdo has enjoyed and learn how to add ripples, new wrinkles to his boxing ability. It reminds me a little bit of when Marco Antonio Barrera had to go back to the drawing board after facing the likes of fighters like Kennedy McKinney and Poison Jr. Jones. Once Barrera went back and refined his boxing ability, he became a Hall of Fame fighter. And those are the aspects that a fighter like Zurdo can apply in a fight like this that will make it where he can come out on top and be successful. Overall, the fight is what I see to be a very close fight. And it's one of the best modern-day Mexican-based fights that you will see. The two men, again, are very close in stature, only a half inch separating them, and on fight night, it'll probably be just a few pounds separating them. But where will the ring IQs come in? That's what I want to see get revealed. And at some point during this fight, it will. And that's what we can look forward to. A great boxing match between two top Mexican fighters who will bring the best out of one another. At the end of the day, on May 2nd, on Dazn, these two men from the T-Mobile Arena, Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez and David Benavidez, the Mexican Monster, are going to entice the boxing audiences with their abilities. But someone has to come out being the smarter fighter here. And I'll give that edge to Zurdo. But it can go either way. But what do you think? This is Stormy B-Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know what your thoughts are about these two giants at cruiserweight as they began their journey toward one another. Leave comments and let's discuss further. Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.